rocket red glare, reppin' USA, so she go crazy. Mom's bursting in there with the rocket red glare, reppin' USA, so she go crazy. Wait for it, 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 wait for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Latino Free Minds. I am your host, Gio. I am very excited to have everybody back. Today, I am joined with a gentleman from here, local in the Valley. Somebody that is ready to step up and fight for a seat that has been held by Democrats for a moment. So without further ado, I have somebody here that I'm very excited to have because not only does he have a reputation locally, but everybody tells me, aside from the fact that he's very impressive, he's also a young guy. I'm always really excited when there's somebody young that is stepping up, and he has stepped up before, and he's ready to move up to the next level. Please welcome to the show, Darin DuPont.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be on with you, Gio, and talk about not only myself but my race.
Yeah, dude, I'm really excited. So I met Darin a few weeks ago, and I go to these lunches here in Clovis, California. It's kind of a ways out to go and from work, but for some reason, Darin's bio that they send it to me every Tuesday or Wednesday before the breakfast as a reminder, like, hey, don't forget somebody's coming today, and it has all the information on the candidate. And I was like, I want to go meet this guy because his picture, he looks young. So they're either like catfishing, like with the old picture. So when I got there, I was really excited because I'm like, man, it's exciting to see somebody step up at a young age. And it wasn't just that you were stepping up. It's the achievements that you've had academically and before. It's the expertise that you bring to the table, specifically for the Valley, especially where you're at in such a agriculture heavy part of the Valley. So I want to get into that with you today. But before we jump into that, Darin, I want to go back to the beginning because you currently hold a role, don't you?
Correct. Yeah, I serve on the City Council of the City of Merced.
Can we talk about how you decided to come into that role?
Yeah, I've always been interested in not only running for office, but representing my community. We had some rough times here in the city on not having our priorities straight. We were spending a lot of money on programs, and while our streets were deteriorating, our sidewalks were deteriorating. The previous council even started to investigate our police department and asked the Attorney General's office to do so. And that really sparked me in wanting to run for office and serve the community because our priorities were not correct. And so in 2023, I announced at the age of 27 that I was going to run for city council. And it was the first time that I was going to run for an elected position here in the Central Valley and in my home county.
So at 27 years old, you wanted to step up. I also know that you have a young family. How has that impacted um, your family life?
Yeah. I mean, the city council, you try to serve the people as much as you can, and be everywhere for the city. And really, knowing that I was going to grow my family here in Merced, I wanted to set the stage for the next generation in Merced. And so having a daughter that is now a year and a half, funny enough, she was born 6 days after I was elected to the city council. I was getting phone calls from the newspaper, asking. I've been paying attention to the numbers, and I said, actually, no. I just had a little baby girl, and so I was in the hospital at that point, focusing on that. And so it's really setting up the next generation, and to do that, you have to start standing up and advocating and representing your own generation.
So you had double good news around that same time. That's awesome. I love that. Um, so you saw some things going on locally that you weren't a fan of, and you decided to fight. No wonder they call you a fighter, right? And that's what I love to hear. I love to hear when somebody doesn't like something, they're willing to do something about it instead of sitting back and complaining. Which is something I'll be honest with you, Darin. I sat back and complained to myself for a lot longer than I would have wanted to. So I'm excited that you hadn't just stepped up once, but now you see that there's another role where you can make some changes. And I want to give you the opportunity to get into why you have decided to shift from city council into this new role.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. When I was thinking about running for state senate, there's a lot of things to weigh. Not only am I doing good work on the city council right now for Merced, and didn't want to slow down that momentum, but also I saw a state that was and is asking for help, a generation that is asking for help as well. And then I looked at my daughter, who's a year and a half, and I really thought, like, when she's 30, when she's my age, what is California going to look like? Well, and it's scary. It was a scary thought to have, because not only how much she would have to make to live in California, but really the policies of California are dictating people's lives and daily lives. And I just can't stand around and let that happen to not only my generation but to her generation as well. Uh,
Yeah.
my generation's and our generation is calling for help. We need local electeds and state electeds to start standing up and speaking for our generation, um, because the cost of living is entirely way too high. Um, we have a generation that can't start to put that first step into buying a home, which allows you to build that family, which allows you
Mm-hmm.
to build the community around you, and then hopefully you can give back to that community. That's what the generations before us, they strive to do, and we've been left behind by California. And so when people ask me, why now? Like, why don't you wait a little bit, get your feet underneath you at the city council? This isn't. I've kind of been in and around government since my adult life, in different aspects. So this is not really anything new to me. It's a new position that I'm running for, but I also say, why not now? Because my generation needs those advocates that will stand up, and not play party politics. This is not a Republican or a Democrat thing. This is bringing California back to the golden state that it once was. And so we need to revive that state.
I like that answer. Because I'm gonna be completely honest with you, Darin. I have had this conversation a couple times in the last few days, and I actually had this conversation with my kids last night because they go, Dad. My daughter goes, Dad, why do you like presidents so much? And I looked at her and I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, maybe not presidents or governors but like these people that you talk to all the time. And I was like, you mean like politics? And she goes, yeah, why do you like politics so much? I said, well, I I want to make sure that when you grow up, California is a place that you want to stay in. I came to a realization, like you did, and I'm so glad that your kids are a lot younger. I came to a realization that I have a teenager, and in a few short years, he hopefully. And I know a lot of people talk about no, kids shouldn't go to college; they should do this or that. I think that some kids, they show certain signs that they should pursue a higher education, specifically when it comes to STEM. If they show the aptitude to continue into science, technology, engineering, or mechanics, it is it is a what's the right word here? As a nation, I think that we should truly push or embrace these young people to step into those roles if they show the aptitude for specifically the STEM roles. There's other areas too, but I'm very selective in certain things. I think that when it comes to those roles, we need to fill them here in the United States. I don't know if the statistic holds the same, but I remember when my oldest, he's 14 now, when he was 4 or 5 years old, I used to tell him, hey, we need to make sure that when we're going to school, we're paying attention, we're learning everything that we can. And he's like, well, why, Dad? I just want to have fun. I'm like, I understand. You have to have fun. You should have fun. But at the same time, when it comes time to learn, you pay attention. You learn. You put all the effort that you can, because one day you're going to grow up and there's going to be certain things that you are going to have to compete against with. And I don't want to sound crazy, but I was like, you have to compete with people from China. He's like, what does that mean? I was like, well, there's a country on the other side of the world where they have engineers and mathematicians and people that work in STEM specifically, and they outnumber us 40-1. I'm sure that it's more now, but I told him you have to be near the top. You have to prove that you are better than another 40 people for a position in that field. At this time, AI wasn't as prevalent as it was, but I still think that those fields are still going to be required. And I mean, I'm second, third grade, summer came. I had them enrolled in some of the online courses to do coding. And it's a lot simpler at their age. It's not like coding as an adult. They're not learning like C++, Python. They're learning coding at a simpler level. But I always had that mentality of I need to prepare him for something. So now that he is a teenager, I just think like, okay, I've been preparing him for this. And he's really good. Like he's way further advanced than I was at that age. But when he goes off to college, he can go to a school here in California, but it might be cheaper for him to go to college outside of state. I'm okay with that, but I want him to come back. And I mean, can you imagine sending your kid out to Florida or Texas because they want to go to like let's say he wants to go to Texas A&M, and he goes down there and realizes, you know what, Dad, it's awesome down here. All the values that you raised me with, people out here share the same values. Not like home. I think I'm going to stay out here because I can actually afford to buy a house here. And I'm just like, well, the way things are looking now, it's not possible. So the fact that you're thinking about that, and that you have a young family, and you're like, I want to fight for my family. I'm hoping that if somebody like you wins, and you hold yourself accountable to make these things happen. Obviously, things get in the way from time to time, but if we fight for these things, we can make it happen here in California. So I'm really excited. Hearing you say that, it makes me excited. I feel like I said this last episode with somebody here local. It's like God is sending you guys to come and remind me that this fight is worth fighting for. So yeah, I appreciate you, Darin.
Yeah.
So
Amen to
you,
that. I mean, and I was one of those kids actually that I went to community college locally, and I left. I went to Northern Virginia to finish my undergrad. Um, every single step of the way, though, I wanted to come back home. I wanted to come back to the Central Valley. So after I went to Northern Virginia and got my undergrad there, and then I went to law school in Sacramento. And again, I wanted to come home. There's nothing really in the nation that's like the Central Valley. And to be able to stand up and advocate for the Central Valley for home has always been so important to me because of the values, the traditions, the sense of worth, no matter who you are, that comes with living in the Central Valley. And we
right,
have a lot of kids that will leave and go to a different university um, out of the state and never come back. And it does us a disservice, especially when we have policies in California that don't lend itself to allowing students to come back and live where they grew up and give back to that community, um, because that's what it's all about. And we have to start changing this state if we want that education to come back home. Because, yeah, you have a lot of people that will go to Texas or go to Florida or go to Nevada or Colorado and say, I'm going to stay here. I don't want to go back home. I think I can start and live my life here in this community. Um, so we've got to start changing now so that we can bring that education back to the Central Valley and to California.
I have to ask because here in the Central Valley, there's almost a different there's almost a different way of life that we don't. I haven't necessarily seen in other places that I've lived. And I grew up in Sacramento. I've lived in Los Angeles, different parts of LA. I mean, I've been many places, but here in the Central Valley, um, here and maybe down in the Riverside Temecula area, particularly these agricultural areas in California, it's almost like it's a different state. There's a different, the conservative values really do shine there. Um, why is it an area like yours is represented by somebody that doesn't necessarily represent those values? A Democrat.
Yeah.
I'm just going to come out and say it.
Yeah.
How is it that a Democrat is holding office for Senate in your area?
I think for the longest time, the Democrats have tried to play the middle, tried to be the party for the people. They've done a very good job at marketing that, right? They've won over not only the Hispanic community, but also really those communities in the middle. But as time and time has gone on, we've seen the Democratic Party move more and more left. I talked to some more seasoned Democrats, and I tell them, the Democratic Party that you once entered into is not the same Democratic Party that is ruling in Sacramento right now. And for the longest time, I think we, in the Central Valley, you just try to get things done. You put your head down, you get to work, you go to work your 8 to 5, or if you're in farming, you're working all the time to ensure that you're going to have a good yield at the end of the season. So sometimes politics is put on the back burner because there's so much to get done, right? You're going to care a lot more about how your tomato plants are doing, or how your almond trees are producing, and your orchards are producing. And so I think for the longest time, the Central Valley has just looked at trying to get stuff done, trying to do the work that they need to do to put food on their family's table. That's something that why I came back to the Central Valley, is those traditional family values of ensuring that you're doing everything for your family. Still, generations and generations still live in the Central Valley, and really care for the Central Valley. It's not like that in Northern Virginia or in Sacramento. These generations of not only families and farmers and communities really care for what your neighbor is doing, or how to help your community. And you have a lot of small towns that are really reliant on being community oriented. So I think now, though, you see these communities starting to open their eyes, and seeing what Sacramento is actually doing. And it's because the cost of living has skyrocketed. The gas prices are continuing to go up. You can't buy a house. You have our generation, that's complaining. And you have a Central Valley that's like, really questioning what they have been voting for years to come, and decades previous, and questioning, they've been in power for 15 years, not having to ask the other side to do anything. What have they done for us? What have they created? And that's kind of the problem that we're facing, and why I say, we're not talking about Republican or Democrats. We're really talking about the policies that have created the ruin of California, and we're talking about how we can create a pathway to revival for this state that we desperately need for everyone, not just those that you may cater to in Sacramento, but the farm workers, to the farmers, to those that go to their 8 to 5 every day. We really need and desperately need a change in this state.
I want to jump into that. I want to dive into some of the things that you just said, and having this opportunity with you to be able to talk about some of the key things that, not just in your area. And I just want to say this because, and I say it every time I have somebody on, when we are dealing with somebody in the California State Senate, for our viewers up and down the state, while you might not represent their district, you are still there in the room to vote, which could affect their district. So this is a benefit to everybody watching. If you're here in Darin right now and you think, I like his answers, let me call up my cousin that lives in Merced. Let me call up my cousin that lives in Chowchilla or Fresno too, right? You a little bit in Fresno too. Let me call them up and let them know, hey, it's funny, I was watching this podcast And there's this guy up there, Darin DuPont, running for state senate, District 14. And I know you're up there. You you need to watch this episode. I'm gonna send it to you, or you need to look him up, because um, if we have him there, he not only can he counter what's going on in the Bay Area or down in Los Angeles, wherever you live. Um, he can make a difference for us, because my neighbors here aren't helping me, but maybe your neighbors can help us. Because, like I said, Darin is going to represent all of us. Even though you might not live in his district, you still live in the state that he's going to be representing. So I want to jump into the affordability crisis here in California. I know it's one of the topics that you are very interested in fighting. It's one of the issues that that you have highlighted. So I want to see what what do you plan to do for affordability here in the Valley?
Uh, Thank you for that question. I mean, it's affordability is one of the leading issues right now in California, and there's really real solutions to the affordability crisis that come from Sacramento policies. We talk about, let's start with gas, right? Because gas is what impacts us, I think, the most in a lot of ways to our day to day lives. We are a gas powered society. As much as the state legislature wants to push everyone to electric vehicles, for the most part, we're still a gas powered society. So when I talk about gas, the gas prices in California are really impacted not only by regulation that come from CARB, which is the California Air Resources Board, but it also comes from taxes. We have roughly 70 cents per gallon that are taxes to the state. So one thing that I would do right off from the very beginning is suspend the gas tax, and I would do that because it would bring direct relief to our communities while we are trying to reprioritize our priorities. I wouldn't be so against the gas tax if the gas tax led to better roads, better infrastructure, better highways, but California just doesn't spend their money correctly and prioritize their money correctly. We drive our roads every day, and they're still need a lot of work. Our highways still need a lot of work, and it means we're not utilizing the gas tax money that we're charging everyday consumers to the right priorities, to the right purposes. So suspending the gas tax right away brings direct relief to consumers. And the interesting thing you see is the state legislature this year talked about a vehicle mileage tax. For the Central Valley, I would wholly be against a vehicle mileage tax.
Yeah,
In communities like Kalinga, where if you need to go get linens or essentials, you're going to travel to Hanford, that's roughly 15 minutes away. You're not doing that if you're living in the Bay Area. Um, you it's just a different way of life. It's a different structure of life. So a vehicle mileage tax impacts the Central Valley and those in the Central Valley way more than it does any other place. And the my opponent, when this bill was in the assembly, she did not vote at all. She abstained from voting, and that just really rubbed me the wrong way, because we need people to stand up and talk about, this is going to impact the Central Valley more than it's going to impact anybody else. I need to
mhm.
take a stand for my community and for communities that are like the Central Valley and say, no, this will impact not only those in the Central Valley, but those that live in communities in the mountains or in the desert. Because if you have to travel distances to get basic essentials, it's going to impact you. So, the gas tax is number one. But with that, we have stopped drilling California oil. We're 80% reliant on foreign oil. And so when we talk about environmentalism and we don't drill California oil because of the environment, well, let's really think about where we're getting our oil. We're getting our oil from foreign countries that have no environmental regulations. Then we're putting the oil barrels on cargo ships and sending these cargo ships across the ocean to come to California. That's and the environment doesn't stop at the borders of California, and so we can't take the hit as Californians for the name of environmentalism when the truth is it's not for environmentalism. It's to change the way your life is structured from a gas powered society to an electric society. And so it's getting back to the basics of drilling California oil, getting back to allowing refineries to refine California oil into usable gasoline here is really important. But it means removing some of those regulations, removing or suspending the gas tax, because those things will bring relief not only to the market but bring relief to the consumers' pockets. Then we talk about housing. Housing is really expensive right now. The Central Valley, it may be less expensive than, let's say, the Bay Area or LA, but still expensive for those that are from the Central Valley and want to live in the Central Valley. One of the first things I would do is reform CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. CEQA has shown to be nothing but a producer of paper and not a producer of outcomes. And that producer of paper comes with environmental reviews that take developers and builders a year to accomplish. These developers and builders are carrying property tax costs, holding costs, before they can even put shovels into the dirt and start building. All of those costs that developers are either holding or needing to forward pay up front, that's all being passed down to the consumer. So the more and more that there are costs associated with building, the more and more prices go up. And I know we need to reform CEQA, not only because of the reasons I just stated, but each year you see in the state legislature exemptions to CEQA. So you'll have bills that will exempt projects from CEQA. And they're projects that are, projects within the state legislature's own backyard or their own districts, and they're helping out their buddies get away from the environmental review and speed up the process. So they know that it's just a process. It's just pushing paper. It's not delivering outcomes because they're just exempting projects for their buddies and not actually dealing with the issue itself, which is repealing CEQA in its entirety. That will lower costs and put shovels in the ground quicker so that we can build houses faster, because time is money. The more time that you have to hold those property tax costs or other costs, you're going to pass down to the consumer. So those are really some of the big issues that we can tackle. I can tackle within the first year, and build coalitions around. There are common sense policies of, if we want to talk about the environment, then let's talk about the environment. But let's not try to hide behind policy and say it's for the environment when that's not actually the truth. So building coalitions, not only in the Central Valley, but these other areas that are impacted Even if they're Democratic areas, they still could be impacted by some of these policies. So working with those legislators to pass these common sense policies and get back to a real balance in Sacramento.
I like a lot of the points that you brought up because I mean let's just start with the transition of energy from oil to electricity, electric vehicles, and the forcing of right now we're at about 5 or 6% of the vehicles on California highways, which to me is a very low percentage, are electric vehicles. But because now there is 5 or 6% of a loss of revenue because of the oil, they want to bring in a mileage tax. We look at that and think, wow, it's an attack on electric vehicles, and yeah, sure, they should pay their fair share like gasoline-powered vehicles, except it's not. It's actually across the board. So with your gasoline vehicles, you are now going to get double taxed. That's the plan, and I know they say, oh, we're just researching it right now, but it's something about Sacramento. Whenever they research something, it's not just to find out if it'll work. It's because it's something they plan on doing already. So it's just a matter of time before we are having to pay tax by the mile.
Bring up a good point, right? I mean, it's just a study. If you, being an attorney, words matter to me. So when you actually read the legislation that they passed, it actually says, they talk about the study, but then it tells the department and implement the study. So when you go into implementation, it's no longer a study. You're actually going to go do it. And if we really want to say, well, we want electric powered vehicles to pay their fair share. Okay, fine. Let's talk about that. So let's charge them like we charge a gas tax. Let's charge them electricity tax, right? Something that's similar to a gas tax. The other thing that, Sacramento was saying, and especially from the supermajority, was, well, this is to replace the gas tax. But here we are. The vehicle mileage tax passed the assembly, and there was no bill that was introduced to suspend the gas tax by the Democrats. It was introduced by the Republicans, and it's not going to. It's going to die. And so, if we really wanted to say, yeah, we're going to move to a vehicle mileage tax, then I would have saw all the Democrats also get behind the Republicans to suspend the gas tax, and that didn't happen. So it's like the old saying, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too. You really, if you want to handle an issue, and the issue was electric vehicles not paying their fair share from the impact that they're having on our roads and our highways, then fine tune the legislation to take care of that issue, not make the issue for everyone, and then also not suspend the gas tax at the same time. It's going to lead to double taxation.
Exactly, and to add to that, what a lot of people don't think about, and we should always remember, California is a little different than every state in the union, because when you look at the average cost of fuel, we're paying well over that rate, at least by a couple dollars. And when you think about electricity, we also fall in the same camp. We pay more than the national average, almost double what every other state pays. So, when you think about, oh yeah, that's going to be fair to penalize the people that have electric vehicles. Well, this was supposed to be an alternative that was supposed to be cheaper, and it was supposed to be an alternative that helped the environment. Except PG&E's rates continue to rise. So we're all getting hit. And then when we have an electric vehicle, we then get put into a different tier that charges us differently throughout the day. A lot of us are working from home now. Those tiers don't exactly make sense for the age that we live in. So I like that we have the opportunity in this election with so many fighters. And a lot of people say, Gio, you're just pushing the Republican Party. Well, I'm sorry that you see it that way. It is true. Most of the people that I'm pushing, actually all of them, are Republican, because almost every seat that we are trying to replace with fighters just happen to be Democrats. Not everybody, not every seat is going to get replaced with another Democrat. So we have these Republicans that are saying, hey, we want something different. We want to reverse some things. It's not just affordability, though. Before I move into the next one, I also want to touch on the housing, which is crucial for your area, because I happen to live near your district. I drive through it when I go visit my family in the Sacramento area, and I see the amount of building that is happening in your district. So when you talk about these taxes that people are paying before they even buy the house, before they even put the shovel in the dirt, there's all this red tape and all of these fees that have to be paid. It's hitting your district hard. It's hitting the people in your district hard. So something needs to be done. So again, having somebody that's going to fight for us, having somebody that understands that it's happening and not pretending like it isn't, because I don't think that the Democrats are unaware of it. I think that they know that it's happening, but they allow it to continue on purpose. And they'll say things like, well, we have a budget that we have to fulfill. Well, how about you start to cut some things? How about you start to tell us where you spent that money on homelessness in Los Angeles? Why is there double digits of billions of dollars going there, and we don't know what it was spent on? Why are we spending billions to update the Capitol building in Sacramento? Why does it cost way more than the White House in Washington, D.C.? Those are things that need to be called out, except the media in California doesn't. It gets called out on podcasts like this one and other ones that I've watched, but it doesn't get called out. When I tune into ABC, NBC, they might touch on it once or twice and then they completely change it, something different. Why aren't they out there in Gavin Newsom's face and everybody's face there in Sacramento and saying, why are we wasting all this money? What are you doing in there in the Capitol building that's costing billions? I want to move forward into because I've been talking about that. I want to bring up one of your other priorities. It's breaking up the hypocrisy of the supermajority, which I really like, because from my point of view, when I read that, I think, wow, somebody wants to fight the supermajority. Obviously, it's not going to be, we're not going to walk out of the polls in November and wake up the next morning and go, oh, everybody's a Republican. No, we're trying to bring back a little bit of a balance, which we don't have in California. We don't have a second party that can say, hey, maybe the constituents that in San Francisco are okay with that, but over here in Merced, over here in Fresno, over in Stockton, down in Bakersfield, up in Sacramento, Redding, they hate these things. They hate paying for your hypocrisy. So, what is it? What can you point out that is the trouble of the supermajority, and why do you want to break that up? You have it listed on your website as hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's the most important thing is bringing back balance to Sacramento. We have to bring balance back to Sacramento, and in being able to do that, you have to break up the supermajority. Because the supermajority, when having a supermajority in the state legislature in both houses, both the Senate side and the assembly side, if they want to increase your taxes or put a ballot measure or on the ballot, or have conversations about the budget, they do not have to necessarily ask the other side. The Democrats can do what they want. So even though the Republicans may point out, there's this issue that we're wasting money or this issue that we're wasting money, at the end of the day, the Democrats get to decide and they do not have to take the input of the other side. Now, I would say the same thing if it was a supermajority of Republicans, because that's not how government was and really intentionally designed from the very beginning. We have to have that checks and balances from both sides of the aisle, because that's what brings not only common sense policies, but policies that reach the people and not reach your own special interests that you're trying to serve. So the hypocrisy of it is, for so long the Democrats have been in office, 15 years that they have had a supermajority in Sacramento, and this year at their state convention, all they were talking about, or all they wanted to talk about, was affordability. Affordability is the leading issue in California. We need to work on affordability. I don't call me crazy, but when you're in power, I feel like you can.
I think I lost Darin there. I'm sure he'll. Oh, there he goes. Hey, Darin.
Hey.
Sorry, you dropped for a second.
Oh.
You were talking about the
Yeah.
Imbalance in Sacramento.
Yeah, they talked about affordability at the convention.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of there. It is hypocrisy, because it's like, you've been in power for 15 years. Why are you just talking about affordability right now, or trying to deal with the affordability issues, or talking about these policies during an election year, or bringing up these issues during an election year? This is the problem with the left, is that they will bring up these issues and placate to the people during election years, but on off cycles, and when they're not running for reelection, they will push policies that directly impact the unaffordability of California. They create this issue by the policies that they pass. And really, in Sacramento, we have policies and legislation and bills that legislatures are just putting out just so they can have bills to work on, right? And it's like, that's not necessarily what we are designed to do. We don't go up there just to put a bill up to say, oh, look at this bill that's changing a definition, or changing some language that has really no impact. You're lying to the people of saying that it has an impact, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
But you can't continue to say, well, we want to work on the affordability issue, and it's our leading issue for this year. You're in power. Why are you not dealing with the affordability issue now? That is the problem. They come during elections and saying, we'll do the job, we'll work on affordability, and blindly people will follow, and we get the same results. So we have to break that cycle, because they're not working on affordability. I mean, if you think they are, I would love to see the expenses that you have, or see how much money you make, because for me it's, and for a lot of those in the Central Valley, life is not affordable right now, and we have to work on that.
I like how you worded that, and it reminds me of the. Hopefully, people have watched the governor debates. Darin, I like to talk about the governor debates because I like to raise the interest for governors, because if people get excited for something to go vote for, they have to look at everything else on the ballot. When you're there now, you're there to vote for a governor, you might as well vote for everybody else that is going to help you out or help out that governor choice. So I watched the debates, and I watched the Democrats continually go in on Donald Trump and how he has made it so difficult for Californians. And they always go, well, he's in this war, right? And I look at the TV and I'm like, come on, guys. I don't want to be in Iran any less than the next guy. Like I agree with you. I don't want to be there, but you need to realize and admit to the voters that your party has been in power, and before this started, I mean, just looking back to January, February, before we went into Iran, we were already paying over $4 a gallon. So yeah, prices have gone up, and they've gone up not just because of the war, but they've also gone up because of the refineries closing in California. And this is just a pattern that continues, and they're not promising to do anything about it. They're not saying, "Oh, we're going to stop closing refineries." They're not saying, "Oh, we're going to open up some of the refineries that we closed down. We know it's going to cost billions, but it needs to be done for Californians." They're not saying, "Oh, we need to cut the gas tax." In fact, when they ask about the gas tax, they go, "No," or "We'll look into that." When somebody says "we'll look into it," it means no. It means no. So, they don't care about affordability in California. All they care about is power and what they can do to, I don't want to say pad their pockets. I'm not accusing them of padding their pockets, but they seem to be getting a little rich, and their friends seem to be getting a little rich. I'm not throwing accusations out there. I'm not an attorney, but it just seems odd to me as somebody sitting back watching, somebody that pays attention. It's odd to me that that occurs in the state of California. A lot of cronyism. It looks like a lot of cronyism. With that, I want to shift it into, because you know the plan is to vote for somebody that wants to fight first, Darin. And for here in the Valley, we want to have some respect for the Valley. We want to bring somebody in that is wanting to protect our communities, and that is actually something that you want to focus on. And things like the high-speed rail, some of our water infrastructure, some of the power, and helping do things for businesses and farmers in California. So I want to give you the opportunity to talk about those things that really do impact not just the Valley, but California as a whole, because agriculture affects the entire state.
Of course. Now, I'll touch on the high speed rail issue first. Being on city council, the city of Merced, we're faced with the high speed rail issue head on and directly right now. The high speed rail authority wants to change our project from downtown Merced to southeast Merced, actually just outside the city limits, just really outside the city limits of my district where I serve, southeast Merced. For the longest time, high speed rail has been coming to Merced and telling us, we're going to get a station downtown, showing us the renderings of the station. And while the project has changed, the station has dramatically changed. Not only do they want to move to southeast Merced, but they want to only provide us a platform with a single structure. The high speed rail authority has been lying to our community for decades. And this always happens to Central Valley communities. Sacramento will come into the community and say, you know what, we're going to change the project. We're not going to take your input, and we're going to make the project cheaper for us, and we're going to save the money and spend it other places other than the Central Valley. Happens time in and time out. And that's another reason why I jumped into this race. is because the High Speed Rail Authority, not only have I been a strong critic of the High Speed Rail Authority and its project in Merced because of the way that they have been dealing with the project in Merced, I've also called them out. With that, that station location and with what they're going to provide as a station. I asked their public information officer specifically about, so are we going to get a platform in Southeast Merced? And he told me, we haven't put a platform in any of our other stations. We won't do it here. And yet we see in a technical report that High Speed Rail puts out that we're going to get a platform with a single structure. It's just really a bait and switch every single time. And I believe that they're directly violating the law currently right now, because the law requires our station to go to downtown Merced. And just today, they issued an RFP, coincidentally, going from Madera to just south of Mission Avenue. This is the same location that they've been talking about of putting a Southeast Merced location. It's just south of Mission Avenue. So to do that, to me, signals that you want to directly violate California law, which requires you to go to downtown Merced, which hasn't changed. And with that, it tells me that you don't care what the city of Merced has to say, and our constituents and our leadership, because you haven't been communicating at all with our issues and our concerns with the project. So as of right now, I cannot support the project. At first, I thought the project was good for the city of Merced. We could get some state investment into our city, but the way in which they're acting, I can't support the project. Another issue that I see is a huge issue, not only for the city of Merced, but also for locations and cities that may have stations in their city. Is the High Speed Rail has been talking about within a half mile of stations, taking all incremental sales tax, property tax, having all zoning control and permitting control. That removes all local control. And really what will happen is, instead of reinvesting that money into that within that half mile, they'll use that money to finance the other portions of the project. They're looking for money.
Wait a minute.
They lost money from the federal government. So this is a real issue that we see facing those with stations that we just can't have. Again, another bait and switch from a state agency taking money from the Central Valley. We use those money to fund police officers or firefighters or provide.
Yeah, I wanted to say that you're telling me that they want to take the taxes for everything within a mile of the high speed rail. What was the incentive then for those cities to say, yeah, we want to bring the high speed? What was the incentive for the people to vote for the high speed rail, except for, hey, that high speed rail, it might bring in some money from the bigger cities into these agricultural areas like Merced, Fresno, Bakersfield. Why? I mean, to me, it's stealing from the local communities.
It's using my constituents' tax dollars to be used on the project in other areas. So they're going to be taxed, and the money's going to be used, in LA or to get to the Bay Area. No, if they're gonna be taxed, they should see their tax dollars at work in their city, which means improving their roads or supporting public safety and police and fire, or improving parks. Right, like their local dollars and local taxes should be reapplied to local issues that we have within the city. And so I can't support the high speed rail project right now. Each time that they bring out a new report or a new business plan, or now an RFP for construction between Madera and Merced, they say, we don't care what you have to say. We're going to dictate the terms. We're going to do the project the way we want to do the project. And everyone in Merced and in the Central Valley should take note of that. because that means, the project that we have right now is from Merced to Bakersfield, the initial operating segment. It means high speed rail will dictate the terms for our communities that have stations on the high speed rail line. And that should be really scary for our communities. We cannot have Sacramento again trying to take control away from local jurisdictions, where you can see your council member over almost every single day, or your mayor almost every single day, or go to a city council meeting, for us the first and third Mondays of every month. You can't do that with the High Speed Rail Authority as much as you can with your local government. And then we get to water infrastructure, right? Or just water in general. Water is the lifeblood of the Central Valley. When I went to law school at McGeorge in Sacramento, I have a water environmental law concentration and a municipal law concentration. I have represented water districts before. I represent farmers and ranchers and water issues. Water is, again, the lifeblood of the Central Valley. In a lot of ways, we need to reinvest in water infrastructure. I want to say maybe a decade ago, if not more, probably two decades at this point, the state and the voters voted to invest in water infrastructure. We have not invested in water infrastructure. Actually, we've been talking about Sites Reservoir, in the foothills, kind of north foothills. We still have not built Sites Reservoir, and it's been almost 2 decades.
I thought it was. So I thought they received funding for it, and it was they said there was going to be built already.
Well, it should have been built already, but currently it's in an environmental battle. So, Sites Reservoir hasn't been built, so we don't have increased capacity. We've actually decreased our capacity in reservoirs. And we have really state laws, that have impacted our farmers in our Central Valley. I have Sigma on one side, which deals with groundwater, that the state has have started to implement. We have groundwater sustainability agencies who have developed these groundwater sustainability plans. We've been heavily focused on keeping the state out of controlling those GSAs, but now we're going to turn into a time of implementation enforcement of those GSPs, which is going to lead to fallowing of ag land. When we fallow ag land, that really impacts our Central Valley from having fresh fruit, vegetables, and nuts, that we get to enjoy. I went to school on the East Coast, and I can tell you firsthand, when you have a salad or when you eat fruit on the East Coast, it is not like eating fruit and having a salad and enjoying food, like we do in the Central Valley. It is not only a Central Valley issue to ensure that we have that fresh food, but it's a national issue, and it's a national security issue. If we have to rely on other countries on fresh food or just food in general, because it wouldn't be fresh at that point, we are relying on other countries to feed us. We don't know what their environmental laws are. We don't know what they're doing to their food. And then you have countries that can dictate if we're going to get this food or not. Again, it's a national security issue. And with Sigma, we can really have a huge concern on fallowing of ag land. I wouldn't be so concerned about Sigma if we were flexible on the surface water side. The surface water side, we're just as handcuffed. We have the state water board that wants to control our water locally, from the state. They in 2018, they put out a plan that would require a lot of the tributaries and other water resources to have 40% unimpaired flows. Well, that's in litigation, and they haven't implemented that. But the way in which they've implemented it is that they've curtailed diversions. So when you divert water to farmers from these rivers, the state water board during times of emergency like drought, which we will have another drought at some point. The state will tell us, nope, we're going to curtail your diversions, and then we're also going to curtail the amount of water that you can uh, pump from the ground. So we are now restricting from both sides the use of water. It means the farmers don't have any water to irrigate their land, either by flood irrigation or drip irrigation, and provide food for our tables. These are real issues that we need to change laws and have people start standing up, not only fighting, but advocating and explaining these issues to the whole state, and not just because the Central Valley gets it. The Central Valley understands that if we don't start changing, we are going to start losing ag land. We're going to start losing food. And when I went to school in Northern Virginia, I had a classmate at George Mason who she was from LA, and this was 2016. And I was talking about the droughts in this class. And this classmate from LA, she's like, yeah, I'm from LA, and the droughts aren't impacting us, right? When they turn on the faucet, the water's still flowing. They don't know the drought is happening. That creates a real issue because we need to start advocating and educating those that don't get impacted by droughts as much as the Central Valley.
I I just want to mention on the Sites Reservoir. I only asked the question that I thought it was started on because it's one of the things that Jim Costa touts, that he got the funding for the Sites Reservoir and it was starting, and then on the point of the your classmates or you said classmates in Southern California, questioning the drought. It's like, I mean, there's cities up here in the Central Valley where water has run out.
Yep.
At least when we were dealing with the drought, like near Porterville, I want to say like in the Reedley Sanger area, there was a city that just completely had no water. Was it Woodlake? I can't remember the city, but these are real things that people deal with, and you're right. We have to advocate up and down the entire state, because guess where the water is going? Well, Darin, but for the viewer, it's like, guess where the water is going? From the Central Valley. Yeah, we send a lot of water out to the ocean, but we also send a lot of water down south to Southern California.
So a lot of our water goes into the Delta. The Delta is an area that's close to the Bay Area, close to San Francisco. From the Delta, we send water along the west side of the state all the way down to LA. And so it's really impactful, not only for Central Valley communities, but communities like Merced that live on a tributary. We need to start educating and advocating and look at new laws. We have very old, archaic environmental laws that are just not, they don't match with what reality does for the habitat that are in our rivers. 40% unimpaired flows, it's not beneficial for the fish, and it's not beneficial for the farmers. We've learned that it needs to be, flows need to continue to happen, which means it's not unimpaired all at once. It means flows happen throughout the year that allows species to come back up the river. But it's not just the water issue. We have to take care of the other issues that's impacting species as well, like non-native species that eat or prey on native species. It's things like this that we have to have the conversations. And when we talk about it for the environmentalism, we can't just dictate the terms. We have to come to a common sense solution and resolution so that we can continue to feed our state and our country and really the nation and the world, um, or we're not choosing that or the species, right? We can work together to accomplish both. But right now, it's just not happening. We are putting all the onus on still growing the food that we need on the farmers without providing the water that they need to do it. So we need to change the way in which we think about water in this state.
You know, you make a great point. Um, I think we need to be held to. Um, I mean, not citizens, yeah, but our leadership has to be held to a higher standard when it comes to managing our resources better. Um, you know, obviously, we have a problem with the environmentalists that hold things up, but what are they really doing when we have the concerns over the delta smelt, right? Our farmers need water, but they can't get it because there's a fish that is. I mean, what's the situation with the delta smelt? Are they going extinct?
Yeah, so a lot of these species are either on the Endangered Species Act or they have some form of protection. The government is trying to increase their populations, but in a lot of these species, we don't think about the other ancillary issues other than water. Like I was saying, non-native species that are preying on the native species. Um, you also have habitats. Habitats have really gone missing. So you have to do habitat restoration and work on that as well. It's not just a water issue, but we make it a water issue as the sole issue. And it's not the case. It's not the fact. And I always say this, we talk about, environmentalism. The strongest environmentalists to me are farmers, because if they do not keep care of their land, they don't do what's right for the soil, they will not have a good yield in the next years. They have to keep care of the land. Their lives and their livelihoods and their families, they depend on it. So, we think it's like environmentalism versus farmers, when really farmers are huge environmentalists, because they're trying to care for the land, because they've got to rely on it for not only their own generation, but the next generation that wants to farm on that land as well.
I love that you say that, because I've always wondered to myself, you know, we turn on the water for the delta smelt, and we send our precious resources away for it. But what are we really doing for the delta smelt? Are we building a way for them to revive their population? I mean, we can farm other fish, but with the delta smelt, can we not do that? But you said we can rebuild habitats for them, and to me, it's like, well, there you go. That is an idea. That is a plan to restore the population, instead of just continuing to hold things back because of an animal or an insect that might be going extinct. Having real solutions, and this is why I like the fact that you come in with the expertise that you have. This is what you went to school for. So when these things come up, if you can get into Sacramento, Darin, if you can get into Sacramento and they have these discussions that some of these guys just don't really, I mean, politicians can talk circles around most of us, but do they really truly understand what they're talking about? And I really like that you actually come in with the background in this. So when you come up with you're not even in there yet, and you're like, look, guys, we need to do something different, build a habitat. What an idea. I like that. That's what they need there on the floor, to challenge them and say, guys, we need to do something different. And I think with ideas like that, we can really fight back for the valley, which, helps the entire state. And you expanded on that earlier when you said the state, the country, and that goes towards, we, as the Central Valley, they call us the breadbasket to the United States, because a lot of the product that is grown here is exported all over the country, so and the world. I mean, I've worked in agriculture as a consultant, and the amount of product that we send everywhere, South America, Japan, all over Asia, Europe, it's there's a lot, and we put that at risk with not giving our farmers water. And even or I should, just as bad, putting our citizens at risk, where we have cities that cannot provide water for the citizens. It's wild to me that we've allowed our state to come to this. It's like sometimes it feels like you're in a third world country, but we're in California. We're supposed to be leaders in everything. We're innovators here, except for our citizens.
Well, it's because we have third world policies, right? Like when we
Mm,
have that mindset
hmm
of let's try to control everything, it's a third world policy. It's a third world type of mindset of control, control, control. If we don't have control, it's not being done right. And let's be honest, there are no farmers in the state legislature. I'm not a farmer, and I don't uh, purport to be one. So
hmm
returning the ability to farm back to the farmers is things that we can do to not only impact our lives and ensure that we are getting fresh food here in California, but will also impact their lives as well to continue the traditions that they've been doing, which is farming, and hopefully the next generation and their family farms as well. Because right now, there's another big fear is the way in which we are treating our farming industry in California. We are starting to push away farmers from telling their family, I want you to farm also, because it is becoming a industry that is not sustainable, not survivable. And that is scary as well, because if we lose
Yeah.
the next generation to other things other than farming, we start to see more farms starting to close, even on top of the fallowed land as well. That is scary again for us, but we have to return the ability to farm back to the farmers. And it takes an ability to change the way in which we're voting. If we start to lose these farms, we start to lose this land that we're farming, we also start to lose jobs. We start to lose labor. Um, and it becomes more difficult to sustain a way of life in California. Um, and so that's why we have to start changing the way we are voting, the way that we're thinking. Um, and look, I don't always agree with my party. I've actually also disagreed with some of the things that my party has said because I'm an individual. I I I represent an individualistic mindset because I want to ensure that I'm not beholden by a party, but I'm also looking at things with a common sense, with open eyes on issues, and that individual and that grounding of myself allows me to represent the people, not represent a party that's in the super majority or super minority or a special interest. Allows me to represent the people that I represent, which are those in the Central Valley, those that are my neighbors, those that live next to me, those that I've known since I've been a baby in Merced County. So we have to start changing the way in which we're voting, the people that we're putting into office across the state. Because if we don't start doing that, we'll continue down the path that we are on.
I was just gonna say that because you mentioned that you weren't a farmer, but you grew up in Merced, and I know here in Fresno, and I'm sure it's same thing in Merced. There's a big emphasis on the fact that we, as a city, are an agriculture city. That is the heart of the city. That is why everything that is here, just like Merced. And the reason that there's a city there is because of the centralization there for agriculture. And you grew up there, and I truly believe that you understand that is vital to the local economy, to the local citizens, and even outside to the rest of the region here, because it is the major industry here.
Yeah,
But
while I may not farm myself, I
mhm,
represent farmers and ranchers as an attorney and hear their real issues that they're facing on the business side, on the water side.
exactly.
My wife's family is in farming. So we talk about these issues at the dinner table when we're having, Sunday family meals at her grandparents' house. So I may not farm, but farming is all around me. So talking about those real issues and how we can impact those issues on a state level and state policy level is hugely important. I mean, because a lot of the policies that they are facing comes from the state. It doesn't come locally. It doesn't come from the city council. It doesn't come from county supervisors. While there's a little bit more than the city, by and large part, the policies that are impacting our communities farming wise are coming from the state. Um, and,
I love that, Darren. I get excited because I can only imagine that your wife's family and those around you, with all the farmers that know you, they're like, guys, if we can get Darren in there, we have an advocate for us, and he is a litigator. Like you went to school to become a lawyer specifically for environmental law and public policy. So who better to have up there to represent you than somebody that has an interest in it, a personal interest in it, I should say. So I bet they get excited about it. With that, Darren, I would like to give you as much time as you'd like. All right, don't feel rushed, but I want you to be able to explain to folks that are going to be walking into that booth to vote, or maybe somebody at home that has a ballot sitting on the counter that hasn't filled it out, that might be listening to you right now and saying, "Hey, I really like Darren, but I want him to convince me. I want you to convince me as a voter in as long as you need. Tell them why they should vote for you right now as they're getting ready to fill in that ballot. And also tell them when they walk out of there or where they finish filling out that ballot, where they can find you so that they can spread with their friends and their neighbors on who they should vote for. Hey, there's this guy, Darren. I heard him on a podcast. He's a great guy. Vote for him. If you want to know more about him, here's how they can find you. Tell them all about it, Darren.
yeah, I appreciate that. I always start out this way because um, it's the most important thing to me. I'm a husband and I'm a father. And I start with those two because in a lot of ways, people will say, well, I'm an attorney. I'm a city council member. I do all these things, which, yes, I do. But being a husband and being a father is the most real thing that I can be, and the most important thing that I can be. I've been with my wife for 11 years. We first met. I just got out of high school. And so we met in the summer I got out of high school, and we've been together ever since. She's been by my side in every step that I have taken. So I have a rock next to me that makes me a better person every single day. A lot of times people want to see my wife more than they want to see me. And now with a daughter that's a year and a half, everybody wants to see my daughter more than they want to see me. Becoming a father is very unexplainable to those that don't have kids. It brings, and especially being a girl dad. Shout out to all those girl dads out there, because being a girl dad really grounds you into having that softer soul. Um, she has me wrapped around that finger, and I'm so grateful for God for putting her into my life, allowing him to allow me to be not only a better person, but to continue to grow. So being a husband and being a father, you look at issues totally different. You look at issues on those family values. How is this going to impact my family? My wife, who is Mexican and Japanese, how is this going to impact my wife and what she is doing as an educator, as in special education? She's been doing that for 7 years. When you start to think about how that will impact your own family, you don't start to think about what special interest groups are going to be saying, right? You think about your family. You think about how that family dynamic can be brought to other families in the Central Valley. She has a large Hispanic family in Merced, and facing a lot of the same issues, facing a lot of same concerns. That is one of the reasons why you should vote for me. That family dynamic, the family values, is very important to me. I don't necessarily need to be in this position, and I don't say that to say, I'm just doing this for other reasons. I'm saying this because this is not who I am. This doesn't define me. Being the elected official, being the state senator, doesn't define who I am as an individual. I'm still going to be the city council member. I'm still going to be a husband. I'm still going to be a father. I'm still going to advocate for my community, no matter what. So having the title is not, I'm not here to get the title. I'm here to actually get to work, because our community needs people to get to work and not just sit in Sacramento and play party politics and work with one party alone, and then hide behind really your party when hard votes need to be taken. When hard votes need to be taken, that's when the Central Valley is left behind. And with that, we have to start choosing people that will start to stand up. I love the Central Valley. I was born and raised here, born and raised in this district in Merced County. The only times I have left from Merced County is to go to school in Washington, D.C., in Northern Virginia at George Mason, and to go to school in Sacramento and get my law degree. For the most part after that, I have lived in and around Merced County because I love this this area. I love the Central Valley. I love the people, because people in the Central Valley get to work. They want to make better for the next generation, and that's what I want to do. When I look at my daughter, that's a year and a half, and I think about California and her generation, I want her generation to look at our generation and say, thank goodness they did something. Thank goodness they stood up for us to change the way in which California and the path that California was on, because we get to enjoy California. The Central Valley is unique in a lot of ways. From my home in Merced, in a clear day, I could see the Yosemite Valley. And on another day, I could travel 2 hours and go to the beach. California is has so much beautiful aspects just like that. But that beauty only goes so far when the policies of Sacramento are ruining your day-to-day lives, your cost of living. The policies have to change. The policies have to change because we're also losing people. My generation does not want to stay here. They don't want to start that career. They don't want to buy that house because they feel like, well, everything I earn is going to go to the government. Or my parents' generation, who is starting to get to that retirement age, get to a fixed income, they're saying, well, I don't know if I want to stay in California. I'm not going to be able to afford it. And so they're leaving. We are losing good people in the Central Valley, day in and day out. We have to start changing the way in which we vote. We have to pick a different path, and we have to hold people accountable. We have failed to hold Sacramento accountable for decades. We have to hold them accountable. We have to choose a different path. With me, you get that family-oriented human being that believes in God, that trusts in his faith, that has no stress because I know God is walking on this path with me. And with that, I just love advocating and fighting for a community that wants to be fought for. And I want to get your vote. I want to have your support this June, and really, most importantly, looking into November as well, getting your support there. And if you want to learn more about me or want to get in contact with me, not only do I have a website, DuPont for Senate, FOR, so DuPont FOR Senate.com, that you can find more information about me, about my family, about the people that have endorsed me throughout the Central Valley, from local council members to mayors to supervisors to senators to assembly members. You can learn all of that on my website, but I have all social medias as well. I mean, I grew up with social media, so I think it's important to have social medias, or social media platforms. So I have Instagram. I have what I knew as Twitter, which is now X. I have Facebook, and I have TikTok. So I have the social medias. Please follow me on social media. A lot of the information, a lot of the stuff I talked about today, I talk about on my social medias. Or if you wanted to see what it's like to be a day in the life, or learn about local issues, or local events, I try to use social media to put out information. So please follow my social medias. All my social medias go to my personal phone. So if you direct message me on any social media platform, I will see it. And so, again, please vote Darin DuPont for state senate this June, as well as in November, because it's important that we change the way in which we approach issues. And we need to bring California back to that golden state that it once was.
That was great. You delivered that. Now I know for sure you were a quarterback in high school.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sacrifice.
Oh man. I wanted to bring up something here as we close up. There was a note on your website that you served on the Merced County Jail Ministry Board. What did you do there?
So I served as a board member on the Merced County Jail Ministry Board. And so what the Jail Ministry Board is, we have chaplains that are directly employed by the Jail Ministry Board. And these chaplains they work alongside both women's prisons and our local prisons to provide faith in our prison systems. And so I'm able to not only work on the adult side, but I also work on the youth side as well. So bringing faith-based information or programming to juvenile hall has always been really important for me. And so supporting in those aspects, I served on the jail ministry board. I've also served on the as a youth member, the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Commission as well. I've served on numerous boards, all different in nature, but those allowed me to really look at how we can be better at connecting with people, especially those in juvenile hall, may have made a mistake, right? And that mistake doesn't need to carry with them for all their lives. But how can we be there as not only a brother in Christ, but also just a human being to help them in any aspect that they need help with. So it's near and dear to my heart. I don't serve on that jail ministry board currently with everything that's going on, but it is a ministry that I was serving on.
Well, Darin, I appreciate you coming on the show today. It's always not just a blessing, but a breath of fresh air when somebody like yourself comes on, somebody that brings new perspectives, exciting outlook for the future of California, especially if you can win, right? New ideas that we haven't been hearing from people up in Sacramento. It seems like up there they're so concerned with things that personally, I don't want to put this on everybody, but personally, I feel aren't really issues that I've ever really been concerned with. So thank you so much for coming on. At the end of Latino Free Minds, I always like to close up with a prayer. But I always first offer the opportunity for my guest if they would like to lead in prayer. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
I'll lead us in prayer.
All right. I'm going to take off my hat in reverence. Excuse my hair. I appreciate you doing this. And once you finish, I will end the episode for all of the listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for having me. And I appreciate this opportunity. So with that, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, thank you for allowing me to come on and speak with Gio tonight and speak with Latino Free Minds. It's really important that we continue to not only follow the path that you are providing for us, but also to listen, to bring back that the family, the core family that we used to have. We need a change in this state, Lord, and we have to look to you to do it. And I ask you that you just place your hands on all of us to help us walk this path that you have set out for us. There may
Looks like Darin disconnected. I'll finish that prayer. Lord, As Darin was saying, Lord, I ask you to bring some. Darin, you're back. I'll allow you to finish that prayer.
Thank you. Lord, just allow us to continue on the path that you have set out for us.
To continue on that path that you have set out for us, to put in the right leaders that you think are the right leaders for us here in California, that are going to put us on the path to getting California closer to you, Lord. That's not what is in my will, but what is in your will, that we hope that you can help California be guided to with these leaders that we are going to go in to vote for. And for the people that are going to be voting, as I ask for you every time, Lord, to give us discernment, to allow us to get educated and learn about who we're sending to Sacramento or who we're sending to represent us, to allow us to get informed and choose those right fighters, Lord, that are going to help us get closer to you, Lord. And lastly, I'd like you to bless Darin's campaign. I know that he travels far and wide. Keep him safe. Bless his family, and give him the peace and the strength to continue on. In Jesus' name, we pray. Amen. Thank you, Darin. Hey, thanks for not just running away there.
No, it's okay.
The internet was playing with us, but I really appreciate you jumping in to guide us in that prayer.
I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you again for having me. And I look forward to discussing more and having more discussions like this.
Yeah, I fully expect the district to get behind you, to rally behind you, and to get you through the primaries and into that general. And as we get closer to the general, I'd love to have you back to go more in depth into some of these things that I really think that your constituents and everybody up and down the state are going to be interested in hearing more about.
Of course, I look forward to it.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. God bless you.